Hey, insight number 2. Going a long way from this one, from where we were. We're going over the page. Yep. Deuteronomy 6, verses 7 to 11. Now this is some really good verses that reminds us to not only teach our children, but to teach the children. So it's not just about teaching our own children, it's teaching people, whether they're our children, just younger than us, or sometimes even older than us if they're, new converts or new to it. But this was a reminder that they had to do this, and they had like a 7-year cycle where they sat down and really went through everything so that everyone got the message. There was no, nobody could say, oh, I missed out on the message. So, this is what they did. They did it every 7 years. Let's read some of it. Oh, get that closer. Like big tomb of New Testament. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So like all the time, teach your children. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thy eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. And it shall be when the Lord thy God shall have brought thee into the land which he sware unto the fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give thee great and goodly cities, which thou buildest not, and houses full of good things, which thou fillest not, and wells digged, which thou diggest not, vineyards and olive trees, which thou plantest not, when thou shalt have eaten and be full. So they're going to go and build cities and have olive trees and have houses. So in the future, that's going to happen. But yeah, this involves teaching and talking of Christ. So how can we teach and talk of Christ? Because there they did it all the time, everywhere they went. But they also made sure that they had like a really intense, kind of like a that lesson you'd get in primary before baptism, or if you were a convert, that set of lessons you would have got before being baptized, so that they knew what they were becoming part of, they knew what was happening, and that the teachings didn't get lost, so they knew who they were and where they belonged to. So what can we do to teach and talk of Christ? How can we do this with our younger people now, or with people in general now? Because it's not just our kids anymore, it's everybody that needs some teaching. So here it also talks of, if you look in the footnotes, it talks of phylacteries, which were little boxes they wore, which had like tiny little scroll in it, tiny little box. And they could wear that around their wrists. Some of them, when they're praying, wore it on their forehead, so it's literally between their eyes, like it says. So to remember. And also of the mezuzot, which was the post at the door frame or on the gate, whatever. That also had tiny, like a scroll in it to speak of this particular scripture about loving the Lord thy God with all thy heart. Like, this is a house that loves the Lord thy God. So this reminds you to speak, teach, focus, and think of Christ in all you do, with everyone you interact with. So, what do you have that helps you have and keep this focus on Christ? So, I don't have a little box tied between my eyes or on my wrist. I do have my charm bracelet, and you think, how does that keep you focused on Christ? Well, for one thing, a lot of those charms are about stars and family. So that helps me to remember, those different things, loving the people that I have on there. There is a little cross on there, because let's not be afraid of the cross. The cross is important. I also have one that's like I don't know if you can see there, it's a little bug that glows at night. It just reminds me that, there's light of Christ out there too. My other bracelet has a lighthouse on it, which also reminds me of light of Christ. So that's one for me. That I don't sell Pandora specifically with scriptures on them, but oh, do I wish they did. But, never mind. We also have around our home plenty of artwork that depicts Christ, that depicts temples. Like even that one. Oh, there. So, you couldn't come into our home and mistake us for not being Christians. There's no way. You'd come in there and go, oh, these people are Christian. Like, there's just no way that you would think otherwise, excuse me. So that's what helps me keep a focus on Christ. I also have a screensaver that is literally a beautiful piece of artwork of Christ on my phone. So That's, look, every time I look at my phone, there's Christ reminding me of what I'm doing. Um, Listening to, and I say church music. It doesn't have to be your mother's church music. There's some really awesome stuff out there. If you're interested in any playlists, I'll totally recommend some. I've got some. Put together a couple myself. One of them was based on suggestions from our my institute class, my young adult institute class. There's some really diverse range of mix of music in there. So there's a lot of things you can do. That's some of the things I do. I like to know, what do you do that helps you have and keep this focus on Christ, so that you can go about teaching about Him all the time, and speaking about Him all the time. Be brave to speak His name and to talk about Him. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do if you're shy to talk in public or to talk to people anyway. So to bring up your religion can be even harder, and in some places in the world I know that you actually are not allowed to. So there's ways to do these things. My friend in Belarus teaches about, or did teach about, when they weren't under the horrible situation they're in at the moment, they would go out and teach about health, like how to be word of wisdom. They would go out and teach word of wisdom. And when people were interested in word of wisdom, they'd be like, oh, but there's more to it. And then they could talk about Christ. That was how their law worked there. So there's different things for different areas of the world. So shout out to Marina and Igor if you hear this. Hey guys, they're really cool. Good members of the church, and are praying desperately for relief for the Ukraine, believe me, as we all are, right? Anyway, so in amongst all of this, how do you keep your focus on Christ? What are you looking at every day? Do you have reminders around? Do you, have that? I love that, having the screensaver on your phone as a reminder of Christ, because it just, like, every time you turn on your phone, boom, there you go, reminder of Christ. That's right, I'm that. It just helps remember who you are. Elder Christopherson, he said, as disciples of Jesus Christ, we ought to do all we can to redeem others from suffering and burdens. Even so, our greatest redemptive service will be to lead them to Christ. So it's fantastic if you go around doing service for others. I love that you do that. But the greatest thing we can do for someone else is to lead them to Christ, to point them to Christ. And that's hard to do when we're not pointed and focused on Christ. So if we are, by simple example, we can help lead them in there, but we also need to speak it. Be brave. Get some bravery in there. But also keep the laws of the land, because that's important. There are ways to do it, though. So what are some of your ways? I love to hear them, because who doesn't want more ideas on how to focus on Christ? So share away. We'd love to hear them from you. All right, that was number 2. I'll see you shortly for insight number 3.